Oh no, we ran out of extended Yume Nikki block world. Aye. Oh well. Hello. Come on. Hands. Yeah. Yeah. Come on, other hand. Come on. Oh, there we go. Yay. Hello, everyone. Hello, someone out there is watching. Welcome to my stream. As you can see, I have put some nice slop in the background. You know, that's just a placeholder. Hang on. There we go. Let's see. Can I hide that for a second? Yeah. Look at my slop. No, I just wanted to put something in the background. Okay. Alright. Let's see here. Okay. Why is my browser freezing? Browser, onegai shimasu. No freezing desu. Please. Why does it keep freezing? My computer is shit. I have a bad PC. I have very bad PC. Okay, if I go to adjust my headphones, the hand tracking is like on that shit. If I do anything else, like actually like going like, nee, hello camera, nee, it's just like, nah man, I can't do anything for you. Did you see my mana? I can't do anything. What am I supposed to do for you, huh? Track your hands? Okay. Alright, what am I doing? Where's my videos?
One of the biggest...
Shush. Alright. So you see, I've got something interesting here. Easter eggs that took the longest to be found. 28 years? 1,917 years. I don't think they had video games back then. What could this possibly be? It's not video games. Oh boy. Eek.
One of the biggest
Hello,
questions in
Oddheader.
Easter egg history has always been which Easter egg has taken the longest to find. Not just what's the oldest Easter egg in history, but which ones actually took the longest to find. Here at Oddheader, always covering the biggest in Easter egg news, we've looked at countless Easter eggs that have taken years to find.
Radical dude! Wow, Zelda! Wow, Zelda, radical! Wow!
Community. Sometimes the answer to this has been misreported and spread around the internet incorrectly, as at times things like the secret room in Batman Arkham Asylum has been quoted as taking the longest, when in actuality this Easter egg was only unsolved for a couple of years, and it wasn't even properly found as the developers themselves eventually revealed it. To my knowledge, never before has anyone attempted to truly compile a list of the longest Easter eggs to ever find. And as of uploading this video, I believe this to be the most definitive list. But if I missed any that took longer than these, feel free to share below, as we can always do an updated video later. This list is going to begin with Easter eggs that took 28 years to find, and we're going to climb all the way up to 30 years, 35 years, over 40 years, and yes, even over 1,000 years.
Holy shit.
Some of you might be skeptical.
There's Easter eggs in the fucking Egyptian pyramids.
Easter eggs that have only been found recently, so stay tuned to the end to find out more. And something else that can take forever to find is that perfect piece of art. Typing nude at the title screen would unlock a new sequence or original display code odd more. Craziest and most infamous 28 years.
There we go.
Dynamite Ducks. One of the craziest and most infamous Easter eggs
Such wonderful
was finally found
Kazu.
in Dynamite Ducks in 2017 after decades of players believing it was fake. The beat-em-up game was released by Sega in 1988 for arcades and later ported to home consoles in 1989. Gaming magazines published evidence of a dirty Easter egg in the game as far back as 1991, assumably because there were nude images found in the data of the game. However, gaming magazines somehow ended up confused and misreported that typing nude at the title screen would unlock a new sequence, which didn't work, so everyone assumed the Easter egg
Good old
was
Justin Bailey.
In 2017, CodeTapper.com finally figured out how to activate the alternate opening, as when looking at the game with a hex editor, they found a line of code that says, if you want to see something dirty, put code here. By replacing the line of dots with the word dirty, you can watch the alternate opening. Normally, the game simply opens with the Oshkosh villain kidnapping Lucy and
Does it really count as an Easter egg if you can only unlock it by, like, hacking the ROM, though? Usually it's like, enter a code with, like, your controller. But this is just hacking.
the ducks go to save
Hack
her.
the planet.
However, in the alternate version, Lucy is topless, with the text saying Lucy was playing with herself while Ben and Pin were buggering with each other in the beautiful flower garden. And according to the text, a pimp appears, changing into kinky leather gear, and Lucy the size of his miracle balls. What even are miracle balls? You know what? Never mind. The text continues saying he takes Lucy to his brothel, and Ben and Pin stop
They
giving
look so
each other
unimpressed.
to go to the brothel because they didn't want to miss out. Good thing this wasn't found for 28 years, because if it was found anywhere near the game's release, I imagine a lot of people working at Sega would have been out of a job. And considering the developers of Dynamite Ducks went on to do Tomb Raider, makes you wonder if there's any more new codes to find in their other games. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! Tied at 28 years is a discovery that would have saved a lot of hair pulling for Nintendo kids of the 80s. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! Is a boxing game released in 1987 on the NES, which players found notoriously difficult. However, it seems as if players were all missing something here, as developer Makoto Wada revealed in an interview in 2009 that the game gave a lot of hints about how to time punches, such as a camera flashing in the audience during the Bald Bull fight, which tells you when to punch him to land a body blow, which no one noticed for 21 years. Apparently, players still weren't great at finding these visual cues from the audience, because it wasn't until 2016 when a player on YouTube, Midwestern Housewives, noticed a visual cue in the second fights with Piston Honda and Bald Bull, which let players know when to punch and knock them out with one hit. As if you look at this man on the left side of the screen, he nods when it's the right time to throw a punch, which apparently we were supposed to notice.
That is very hard to notice.
The audience with a beard. Well, if anyone's looking for another Easter egg that will take years to find, all you gotta do is figure out which one of these dudes in the background is trying to tell us something. Is it this one? This one definitely looks suspicious. 29 years. Ray Maze. Many Easter eggs that took decades to find have been featured on the channel before, such as a cut ending that doesn't look like it was ever meant to be found in the arcade game Ray Maze. Ray Maze released only in Japan in 1988, though it later got ported to the US in a 2006 arcade compilation. In the game, Rika must race her holographic car through virtual mazes to save her brother Makoto from the evil
but is
Mr.
there a
Mole,
nude code?
Or so players thought until 2017, when Zero-chan, Mark J, and Sudden Dez found a much darker ending that contradicts all of this. In the cut ending, Rika confronts Mr. Molt, only to see him take off a disguise and reveal himself to have been her brother Makoto this whole time. So he made us waste all this time saving him for nothing? Let's kill his ass. Apparently, the developers never wanted anyone to see this, as the conditions that trigger this horrible ending are impossible to achieve, as you have to get through the game in only 16 stages without dying, and no one's gotten less than 18, which at least explains why this wasn't found for so many years, though that still doesn't explain why the developers thought this was a good ending. Beyond Shadowgate. Another ending that makes no sense was found in Beyond Shadowgate, a point-and-click adventure game from 1993. In 2023, players Enigma Opia and Kula Rose found several unused areas in the game's data, including a physician's office located behind a door near the curio shop, which is normally inaccessible to players. Upon entering the room, a strange cutscene plays, where a man says he's been trying to contact your sister, but a mystic barrier separates them, that he cannot get through, but knows that she's in great danger.
Find her, Eric. Find her.
In-game text reveals he is a doctor, but it also says you doubt it, as he seems near a nervous
Hang on. Why does my browser keep freezing? Browser, please. Aye.
breakdown from too much drinking and smoking. And then he shoots you. Which, aside from being uncalled
I have very
for,
bad
shouldn't
PC.
be happening in this game at all, as it said in the Middle Ages, long before guns like these were invented. Thankfully, you can mod the player's position.
I might
over
need
the
to, like,
doctor
reduce
and
myself
gain
to a
software
reactive
protection.
PNG someday.
30 years. Space Quest 4. Space Quest 4 released in 1991 from Sierra Online, a developer known
This
for many
music is
Easter eggs.
poppin' though.
With 21st century Sierra fans creating resource viewers that allow players to look at every asset in the game, it's become even easier
I made myself
for players
dizzy
to
for a
find them
moment
decades
there.
after the game's original releases. This is how blogger Ben Shuf found 2 Easter eggs that were buried in the software access store area of Space Quest 4. In 2021, Ben Shuf found that clicking the taste icon in the top right
Yeah.
corner of the screen causes
Yeah.
a woman to run
Yeah.
by who's being chased by a floating policeman. And while this Easter egg is pretty tame, Ben Shuf revealed he found another egg in the same area back in 2019. That may explain why some Sierra eggs are so well hidden, as clicking the smell icon in the top left corner
What's
of
the
the
sex
screen
woman?
causes the
The egg?
narrator to say,
Was that the Easter
then
egg?
turning
Oh
your
god.
back on the store clerk causes him to eventually flip you the bird. Hey, you too, buddy. Sierra
Stop
seemingly
fucking
didn't
around
think
with my
we deserved
fucking
that,
video
though,
games.
as both eggs were removed from the CD versions of the game. It's honestly pretty surprising they potentially removed this discovery because of its inappropriateness. Considering they put out at least 3 surprising they potentially removed this
That's
discovery
a good
because of its
face. Look at that.
inappropriateness.
Look at that dude.
Considering they put out at least 3 more Leisure Suit Larry games after this. 31 years. Grandmaster Chess.
How long until
The
we
list
get
of
to the
things you
ancient
never expected
Egyptian
to see in a
eggs?
game from decades ago continues with Grandmaster Chess, a chess simulator that was released for Windows in 1992. In
Wow, finally
2022,
chess is
Damiano
awesome.
Gurley of the Genesis Temple talked with a
Wow.
programmer of the game, who revealed the game had an undiscovered nude code. Gurley asked if the internet
Face tracking.
would get
Come on.
together for sexy reasons once again to find the long-lost nude code, and sure enough, they did. As in 2023,
The internet has done it
Sonnabelle
again.
found the code by going through the
We
beta
did
of
it,
the floppy
Reddit.
disk version of the game after managing to break the game's copy protection. Finally, revealing the new code is SCOT space
Got.
NIXON. Nixon.
Ye.
First Watergate, now this.
Uh-oh.
Turns out the nude code takes the queen piece's top off, leaving her breast exposed. And
Oh,
also
no.
apparently changes the king's face to look at her in horror. And for some reason, the bishop loses his staff and bloody knife. Not sure what that's about. Give
He
the
also
internet a
becomes,
sexy
like,
reason to
ether.
find something, and they'll never turn up dry. 33 years.
Everything keeps
Gumball.
breaking.
Gumball
Come on,
released
come on.
in 1983 for the Apple II computer, with later ports to Atari 8-bit computers and the Commodore 64. In the game, you play as a gumball factory worker sorting the balls by color through a machine, earning promotions.
Now we're
if you do
watching
well
the
enough,
13
working your
Easter
way up
eggs
to
that
vice
took the
president and
longest to be
retiring at the end
found.
of the game.
28
While
years?
players thought for years that
1,917
retirement wasn't
years,
the
huh?
end, this made
Isn't
a
that
discovery
neat?
In 2016
Ancient
that shows
historical
there's more
video
to the
game
game,
Easter
as
eggs.
4AM was uploading Apple
Well, it's not
II
from a
games
video
to the
game,
Internet
presumably.
Archive, when he and his friend Cucumba noticed a cipher, which
Ah,
you
there's
can
the
get
house
segments
painters
during the game
outside.
by pressing Control and Z during the cutscenes
Bump it to
between
bump it
levels,
to.
piecing together the cipher and
they're
translating
painting
it
my
reveals the
windows.
message. Enter 3-letter code when you retire. They found by
Right
pressing
there.
Control Z a second time during the hidden messages would reveal another hidden message, double helix. 4AM and Cucumba figured out double helix was referring to DNA and typed DNA during the cutscene, which revealed a message signed by the developer that says, "Aha, you made
Aha.
it. Either you are an excellent game player or gah, program breaker. You are certainly one of the few people that will ever see this screen. This is not the end though." In another broader bun product, type Zodware for more puzzles. It's still unknown what the last code Zodware is for, but considering this message
that one's gonna
took
take even
33
longer to
years
find.
it's looking like the next one won't be solved until 2049.
Uh-oh. What about 2069, huh?
35 years.
Nice.
Zach, the art of visual stage. While 33 years is
Zach.
a long time to wait to solve the Zodware code, it's not as long as it took to find some hidden dialogue in the 1989 RPG Zack, the art of visual stage, which I previously featured in my best
Oh,
video
hello.
game discoveries
There's a
of
cute anime girl
2024
emoji
video.
in my
As
chat.
That year, Mills on Twitter found by exiting a cave area after talking to the character Rachel, then re-entering the cave to talk to her more than 60 times. Rachel eventually levels
Ancient
the
ass
player
game.
character
I
to
mean, yeah,
25,
how else are
and
you
then
going to
sets a
have-
new VFR
How else are you going to have decade-old Easter eggs outside of decade-old games?
R400R NC30 is a great bike because designer Yanagi Shima-san rides one, yo-yo-yoing Zubi Zuba, which makes sense as
Zubi
it's still one of the
Zuba.
longest Easter eggs to ever find, because who would honestly think or want to talk to the same character over and over 60 times in a row?
You haven't met the average
37
RPG player if you
years.
think that.
Windows 1.0. The Windows operating
Windows?
system released in 1985, which pretty much changed the world as we know it. However, it wasn't until 2022 that Lucas Brooks found an Easter egg in Windows 1.0. The Easter egg, which was apparently hiding all those years in a bitmap image of a smiley face, is a developer acknowledgement screen. Lucas uncovered it by reverse engineering and modding the Windows software, but still doesn't know the actual
Hello, sheep.
intended way
Oh,
to
hello.
trigger it, which is still on the
You
table
were hoping to
be
catch one of my
discovered. The screen
streams?
says,
Amazing.
"Congrats," and lists the developers on the
Wow, I'm
Windows team who
flattered.
made the
People actually
software,
want
which
to
includes
watch
a
me.
young Gabe Newell before he co-founded Valve. Speaking of Gabe, at this point it feels like seeing Half-Life
Gabe.
3 is going to take longer than the 37 years it took to find this Easter egg. 40 years.
Gabe Newell is like 62, right? How long will it take to find his Easter egg?
Publishing at Microsoft, Ed Freeze, was interviewing ex-Atari
Why do you
engineer
think I'm
Ron
here? No,
Milner
not
in
you, the other guy.
2017 about working on the first arcade racing game. Milner
Well, I'm
revealed
glad
he
you
worked on a
found me.
game
Hello,
from
hello.
1977 called Starship
Come on,
One
come on.
that
Wave,
had one
wave,
of the first
wave,
secret
wave.
back doors he knew of in an arcade game, which he
Very
never
good.
told anyone
Laptop
about for more than
webcam,
30
very
years.
high
That
quality.
would grant the player 10 free
Okay.
games.
Let's
Ed
look at-
wanted to
let's
then
look at-
find what may have been the
let's look at
oldest
Easter
known
eggs.
Easter egg at the time. The only problem was Ron, despite programming the Easter egg,
Hey.
didn't remember how to do it. All Ron remembered was that
Hey.
Hi Ron would display when entered
Yeah,
correctly,
emojis in my
which gave
chat.
Ed enough
Yeah,
information
cute.
to find Hi Ron in the game's code. With the help of
Bedroom.
another Atari engineer, Mike gave Ed enough information to find
Bad rom. Bad rom. No biscuit. This rom was pirated. It was hacked. It is bad.
Hi Ron in the game's
That's a good
code.
old bit.
With the
I
help
like
of
that.
another Atari engineer, Michael Alba, and asking Ron to decipher certain lines of game code. Egg managed to figure out on a working machine that if you held down the start and phaser buttons while putting in a coin, quickly letting go, then slamming down the slow control. Sure enough,
Slam.
Hi Ron appeared and the free games were rewarded. Considering this Easter egg costs a quarter and is this difficult to activate, it'd be a surprise if any players ever attempted this before, unless they were looking to lose more quarters than 10 free games are actually worth. Ed at the time believed this may have been the oldest Easter egg ever, and it does remain one of the longest Easter eggs to ever be found, clocking in at 40 years. And while it may
Damn.
remain the oldest cheat
But it's
code
not
in
the oldest,
history,
though.
given
There's
it
like
grants the players 10
5
free
minutes left in
games,
this
it's
video.
still far from the longest Easter egg to ever be found.
Yeah.
42 years.
Life, the universe, and everything.
Another Easter egg that took 4
Oh, damn.
decades to find can be found in Spitfire. An
This is like the
airplane
primitive
combat game
microbial
released in
form of video
1977
games.
For the Fairchild Channel F, a forgotten home console from the 70s. However,
Yes,
it wasn't
Pong.
forgotten by RT55J on SelectButton.net, who was data mining the game in 2019 because his dad worked on it. This is how he
That's
found
pretty
on
cool.
the game select screen. Entering a numeric code that requires 48 button presses causes a developer credit for Michael K. Glass to
Yay.
appear for a single frame. Damn.
There he
Talk
is.
about a hidden Easter egg, considering the developer never seemed to pass it along to his own family, and it took his son 42 years to find it. While the Easter
Yeah, like, old games didn't have credits unless you went out of your way to do shit like that.
egg itself maybe doesn't seem
Wacky.
like the biggest discovery today. Back in the day, a lot of developers fought for visibility
Yeah,
over the
yeah.
authorship of their
Exactly.
games, as even
Exactly.
Atari had a policy at the time of omitting developer names in order to prevent them from gaining too much leverage. So in a way, this little Easter egg may have actually been a very empowering one for the developer. It's worth mentioning that there are other Easter eggs speculated by some to be the oldest, such as a McDonald's Easter egg that can be found in the 1973 game Moonlander by traversing enough screens
McDonald's!
horizontally. A secret mode in the 1975 arcade cabinet Anti-Aircraft 2, where if you modify the circuit board, the planes will turn into UFOs, which is still a mystery why the mode is there. And the TOPS 10 operating system
The earliest days of video games was such a wild west, yeah. Like, computing in general. Like, the old stuff is really interesting. Like, you look into, like, undocumented commands on the 6502 processor. There's some cool stuff there. Just like, oh, this byte does not, like, it doesn't have a command specifically tied in, but if you try to use it as a command, it does an interesting thing. It might be a useful thing, like, oh, it copies memory to 2 different addresses at the same time. Or it might be like, it makes the computer crash and catch on fire. I always love it when the computer fucking explodes. We need more of that in modern
1970, where
computing.
the make command saved a file
Nowadays,
with
we
the
just have
Techo text
advertisements and
editor. So if a file was
shitware.
saved as love with the command
Oh.
make love, it would respond with not war. However, despite possibly being the
Not
oldest,
war?
these Easter eggs didn't take forever to find and have been known about for quite a long time. The longest to find digital Easter egg on record remains Spitfire at 42 years. But as far as the longest Easter eggs to find, period, there's even some older ones that have been recently found that predate video games themselves.
Wow.
809 years. The
Oh, gosh.
Santiago de Compostela Cathedral. The Santiago de Compostela Cathedral in Galicia, Spain, gets more than 3 million visitors every year, filled with religious relics and ornate carvings. Christians believe it's the burial site of St. James, and many pilgrims had visited the cathedral since its completion in 1211. However, the millions of visitors over these hundreds of years miss a sneaky detail in the cathedral. In 2020, art historian Jennifer Alexander was leading a team looking for marks left by the Masons who worked on the cathedral when they found a
The
mark they never
Freemasons?
expected to see, a self-portrait carved by one of the craftsmen, which kind of looks like he's shrugging, seemingly asking why no one saw him for more than 800 years. The small stone carving is at the top of a 40-foot pillar, far
Damn.
out of view of any church visitors or clergy over the years, and wasn't seen until Alexander and her team were in the upper
He's just
levels
chilling,
of the
yeah.
cathedral,
He's just
shining
a little
lights on the
dude.
top of the columns. Guess that means this medieval mason was unknowingly making history when they carved one of the very first Easter eggs and one of the very first selfies. As if we needed
What
more
if the very
proof that
first
Kim Kardashian
selfies?
didn't actually invent the selfie.
That's one way of putting it.
1,917 years.
There it is.
Bindo
There it
Bona.
is.
The oldest Easter
There it
egg
is,
on
that's
our
the big
list
number.
dates all the way back to the Roman Empire, as it was found in the ruins of Vindobona, a Roman military
Vindobona.
camp that was located in what is now Vienna, Austria. The Romans occupied Vindobona from the year 103 to 433, and at its peak, the fort housed 30,000 people. While the Romans abandoned the site and later settlements built over it, you can still see some of the ruins throughout Vienna, including one that wasn't discovered until 2020. That year, archaeologists discovered a roof tile from a Vindobona fort. However, there was something unusual about this roof tile, as it had a Latin transcription carved on the underside, the side that wouldn't
What's
have been
it
normally
say?
seen by anyone when it was applied to the roof.
Hmm?
Evidently, someone involved with the construction of the fort decided to carve a secret message underneath the tile, likely presuming it would never be found once it was stuck to the roof, at least as long as the building stood, and not knowing that it would be found after the collapse of the fort nearly 2,000 years later. As Roman Archaeology News shares, the message roughly translates to, "If you can see me, I've fallen to the ground." And fell it did.
If you're reading
right
this
along with the
message,
rest of
my
the
house
Roman
is
Empire. Well,
broken.
just like so many things in modern society,
Ah, that's
it's
good.
no surprise that even the first Easter eggs
Mhm.
began with the Romans.
Yep.
And thank you again to Displate for sponsoring this video. If
Shut
you're
up about
looking for a way to
Displate.
put Eisenman, Select, Subrock, and Terran Stock for their Patreon support. Stay tuned.
You know, that last one reminds me a lot of the graffiti at Pompeii, where it's a whole bunch of this guy sucks ass, and this guy fucks bitches, or this guy does not get bitches. Nothing has ever changed in the history of humanity. We always write, "For a good time, call so-and-so" on the walls. Hang on, let's see that. The body. Graffiti of Pompeii and Herculaneum. Alright, capturing this good? Yeah, this is good. Take off your tunic, please, and show us your hairy pride. Nothing has changed in the history of humanity. Oh. Weep, you girls! My penis has given you up! Now it penetrates men's behinds! Very Roman. Goodbye, wondrous femininity! Amplicatus, I know that Icarus is buggering you. Salvius wrote this. I know what you were doing! I know what you did last summer, you were fucking gay men! Again. Antiochus hung out here with his girlfriend, Cythera. Watch it, you that shits in this place. Now you have Jove's anger if you ignore this. Wow, more defecating. Yep. War. War never changes. And neither does graffiti. I screwed a lot of girls here. I had much sex. I am big dick man. sometimes, Solemnes, you screw well. Very good job. You did it. Phileros is a unit. Ha, ha, ha. Point and laugh at Phileros. Ha, 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 ha. More defecating is such a funny statement, yeah. Poo-poo funny, haha. To quote German 985, poo-poo funny, haha. Alright. Let's see what else I have here to look at. 1 hour of terrifying internet mysteries. Now, leave that for later. Let's see. He's right, you know. Yes, yes. Alright. So how about an obscure speedrun rabbit hole? Whatever the heck this is. Nagano 98. Nani kore? Eh? What could this possibly be? Let's find out.
Friends, today we have an unusual story, or at least one of those claims of a speedrun world record that causes you to pause and scratch your head, at least for a moment.
Did someone go on the internet and tell lies?
To r/n64 on June 23rd, 2024. A post that reads this. I just found out that 20 years ago, my dad was secretly playing
Secretly?
Winter Olympics
Let the man play his video games in peace. Why did he have to play them secretly?
According to my research, he holds a few world records in downhill alpine skiing. And there's just one image attached showing this. Alpine skiing, downhill, the cartridge's leaderboard showing times ranging from 1:15.85 to 1:15.99.
Here we go. His wife must have been a PlayStation girl.
What's going on here? We need to know a little bit about this game, Nagano Winter Olympics 98.
Husband, if I catch you playing on that damn Nintendo again, you're sleeping on the couch tonight.
And this particular minigame, Alpine Skiing Downhill. You see, Nagano 98, as I'll call it, is obviously the officially licensed Winter Olympics game for that year for the Nintendo 64 and PlayStation 1. And so it holds a strangely near, dear, and niche place in the hearts of some 90s gamers, especially those who love these sorts of sporting minigame challenges. In this game, there are 10 playable events. Things like downhill skiing, ski jumping, speed skating, aerials, snowboarding, even curling. This might actually be one of the earliest representations of curling in any video game or computer game, which is cool in its own right.
I wonder why. It's such a good gaming. It's such a good sport, so fun and interesting. Fucking curling.
A contest held in
I can't believe there's not more video games of it.
Official by the International Olympic Committee.
I'm sure the curling enthusiasts enjoyed this.
We'll try not to get caught in the weeds of curling too much on this one.
I don't understand curling.
Competitions in Nagano 98 are things that naturally call to a certain type of gamer. The speed gamer, hoping to improve their personal scores bit by bit, constantly racing, optimizing your movement to get a better and better time displayed at the end, saved into your cartridge, or in this case, the controller memory pack. Now look, Nagano 98 is pretty niche, and so competition has not been as fierce throughout the ages as it has been in other games.
You'd rather watch hockey? I don't know anything about hockey either, except that the guys beat the shit out of each other with the sticks sometimes.
Much of it was done on the Nintendo 64 version rather than the PlayStation version. I find this to be a common theme among these sorts of niche sports games that release on both N64 and PS1 in that era. For some reason, the competition high scores only seem to take place on the Nintendo 64
That's why I'd rather watch it.
I don't really know why this is. Maybe PlayStation
Brutal
gamers
violence.
naturally weren't as interested in speed gaming back then. I don't know. If you have a good theory about that, please comment it. But I digress. Also, there have been a handful of scores submitted on emulator for this game, and you can really see how much faster they are on emulator than N64, really showing just how laggy the N64 console is in comparison to
this game sucks, it's so slow. It's no run good.
60 frames per second setting like we have on modern PCs, and this is a particularly extreme example. So just make sure if you're doing your own research, you're not confusing emulator runs with N64 console runs. Okay, so anyways. The mere nature of a game that features races of speed and saves or displays your best time calls to these sorts of gamers to push things lower and lower. In particular, the alpine skiing downhill category is simply a skiing race, where all you need to do is steer with the control stick and press A to edge the skis for tighter turns, which slows you down a bit. So you really want to press A as little as possible, but as much as is necessary to actually make the turns and make all the gates and make your way down the course. Now,
They're right outside my window, the house painter guys.
Slalom competition where the poles or gates are closer and tighter.
I think they're literally painting my window right now.
There's even a few more in the actual Olympics, but there's these two in this game, and we're focused on the downhill category here. So, let's revisit that image posted to Reddit in June 2024. Now, immediately a couple of things pop into mind. As someone with speedrun experience, this is actually the kind of results page or leaderboard that one would expect to see from someone really grinding a time down, with hours upon hours of speedrun attempts. A good example is Mario Kart 64, where the results page in time trials saves your top 5 best times down to the 100th of a.
I was under the impression that very few games actually run decently well in terms of frame rate. I mean, it is very old hardware, so.
Second. And so you'll see among the top players,
that's how it is for most of them,
are usually within a few hundredths or frames of each other. Because that's typically how often you come close to improving your personal record or world record over the course of your long and arduous grind in the speed game of your choice. We can see, for example here, on legendary Mario Kart 64 player Matthias Rustmeyer's Frappe Snowland record, that his top 5 times are all within 0.15 seconds of each other, from 1:58.27 to 1:58.42. And similarly, on Daniel Burbank's Luigi Raceway 3-lap times, they're from 1:57.61 to 1:57.71. His top 5 times all within 0.1 seconds of each other. This is typical and expected in racing games.
Makes sense.
Many of your best times. And so OP's screenshot passes the vibe check, or the grinder's check.
The smell check,
but what
even.
about the actual time? 1:15.85 in alpine skiing downhill game. Is such a thing possible?
The dad's a filthy
Here's
cheater.
where it gets pretty weird. I would have 2 places in mind to visit to see what scores have been submitted in this minigame and find any more proof or evidence on what times are possible. Speedrun.com and Cyberscore, and we will go check those in a moment. But we see OP post in the Reddit thread linking a website I've never seen before, videogamesrecords.net, which seems sort of like a clone of Cyberscore. You know, maybe it's someone's passion project to make a website like this, but the scores are completely different here than on Cyberscore. It almost feels like walking into a parallel universe or something.
That's also weird.
We see the fastest time ranked as 1:16.02 by a gamer named Croctus, and we have screenshot proof of this score. Now in this case, OP's dad does indeed have a faster known time. We see a couple of other submissions here too, a little bit slower, that also have screenshots offering proof of the achievement. Honestly, I was just so stunned seeing this website in the first place. I never heard of it. I can't imagine who's submitting times to this lesser known place. And it's like, how did OP find it instead of finding his way to
The Super Monkey Ball speedrunning controversy. I'm not sure what you're talking about off the top of my head, but that sounds familiar. I have probably watched something about that at some point.
Instead, you know, this is almost
I fucking love like obscure little crusty websites like
mystery to me.
Site they're talking about here. Just like some weird little corner of the internet.
Sources, we do find something much more expected. The best submitted time with video evidence is actually a 1:15.38 by a gamer and Smurf enthusiast who might be somewhat familiar
Smurf enthusiast,
named Zwiop or Danny, who I've discussed in regards
crusty
to
websites and runs on VHS tapes. Hell yeah.
2000. Now, Zwiop has a video, and based on the full breadth of proof Zwiop has for these sorts of Olympic sporting minigames, I consider this 1:15.38 to be the best, most substantiated world record claim. Now, here's the thing. Zwiop posted this video on February 14th, 2022, a little more than 3 years ago. And
but the screenshot, the dad scores.
2 years after Zwiop scored his record time. Now you'll note among the submissions across Speedrun.com, Cyberscore, and even VideoGamesRecords.net, OP's dad's 115.85 would be good enough for second place to this very day. So if OP's dad got his time of 115.85 before Zwiop's record in 2022, then he probably would have held the world record at some point.
Damn.
Based on context from OP's posts and replies, it does seem as though his dad did achieve these times a long while ago. For example, someone in the thread asks, in regards to the title, why secretly? To which OP replies, I guess it was still taboo for a parent to play video games back then. He was waiting for me and my brothers to go to bed to have the console for himself.
That's also a very funny mental image. Just some fucking dad just autistically grinding out ski racing games while everyone else is asleep.
Does direct OP to speedrun.com, in which OP realizes that his dad was not far from the record, though another commenter points out what is probably true, that OP's dad did have the world record back then, whenever then was. And it would have lasted until 2022, when Zwiop, who specializes in these sorts of games, finally went out and beat it. Honestly, I just love this story quite a lot.
I love
really
shit like
imagine
this.
This sort of mood of this dad waiting for his sons to go to bed and then turning on the N64, finally getting an hour or two to himself at night and just grinding, not even a whole game, not even a very common or popular game, but this relatively obscure game, Nagano 98, and even within that, an obscure minigame, alpine skiing downhill. And like that specific race being his complete reprieve to, the chaos and trials of raising a family, as amazing as that might be, just to get a few moments of peace on this skiing hill. And you can imagine him playing day by day, for days on end, weeks on end, this sort of being his habit or ritual before bedtime to play this game. And the sort of strategies that he had to identify and learn himself. And we have seen in the Speedrun Worlds these cases where these guys have sort of appeared out of nowhere with knowledge that you would think would have to be, learned online from a community collaborative setting. So this kind of thing does happen, as shocking as it is. And I just believe the story. It's a cool story, and I want to believe it. And I mean, look, it's a screenshot from an old video game. It's not like there's really an immense reason to fake this. Although, of course...
Yeah, but wouldn't it be funny if the dad was just, cheating at the game? That's what he does after everyone goes to bed. He hacks the game, just fucks around with it.
Sometimes people do fake stuff for no reason.
Yeah.
Everything just adds up here, based on the times, the personal records being closely impacted, and based on the story, based on what we know is possible today, based on who holds the record.
He whipped out the Game Shark, or he's found an exploit, a little glitch in the level geometry that if you hit it at the right angle, you can skip part of the track. So I guess that's legitimate speedrunning technique too.
Stories I've heard, a pal who I'll leave nameless for the sake of this story.
Or a cosmic ray came and zapped his machine and flipped a bit.
Who was a wave race speedrunner. He said, his dad never cared much for his own video game play, but the one game that they ever played together was Wave Race, specifically the Sunny Beach course. And so Sunny Beach really
I love the Cosmic Ray story so much. Yeah, apparently the word on the street is that it wasn't a Cosmic Ray, probably. It was just probably a dirty cartridge. But that's no fun. I choose to believe Cosmic Rays did it.
Means a lot to this gamer over the years. He thinks fondly of the time spent playing video games with his father when he plays Sunny Beach. Or even, I remember being about 11 or 12 years old and having
to stand there and shoot a guy. What's this gameplay?
I remember being about 11 or 12 years old and having
just stand there and fucking shoot a guy in the head 15 fucking times in a row.
A friend over for a sleepover.
Neat.
And my father
fuck him up.
comes in at 1 or 2 a.m.
Hostage released!
During the sleep.
You fucking exploded the guy's head. The hostage has been saved.
Father comes in at
murder.
1 or 2 a.m. one night during the sleepover and comes to us and says, "Hey boys, how do you beat the friggin' frigate?" And he was having trouble actually just figuring out how to pause to take out the tracking bug to throw on the pirate helicopter and complete the frigate mission. And so that's kind of a similar situation where, the dad is kind of secretly gaming, nobody really knows, and the things that they might get up to, whether they're successful like OP's dad or less successful and needing a bit of help like my own dad when it comes to Frigate. And so this story just put a smile on my face. OP's dad probably had a really great record in alpine skiing downhill in Nagano 98, and I just want to share it with you all in the research.
Secret gamer dads, yeah.
It kind of took me down. So thank you all for watching, my friends. A huge thanks to the supporters on Patreon and the channel members.
That reminds me
here.
of something else.
Stay tuned,
Hang
my
on.
friends, and I will see you in the
Oh, it
next
froze
stream
again. So
or
cool.
video.
My browser keeps freezing. My computer doesn't like having, like, two things open at the same time. Right? That reminds me of something. Search. Game on Snap. Let's see here. Here we go. Should be it. There's these, like, old gamer guides that have, like, impossible scores listed for Pokemon Snap.
What were the German developers doing decades ago in Pokemon Snap back in
What were they fucking
1999?
smoking?
A recently unearthed ancient text has revealed some
Ancient
very
text.
unusual claims in Pokemon Snap, which, if true, could imply that we've been missing something huge in a couple of high scores. The official German Pokemon Snap strategy guide lists 2 high scores for Butterfree and Snorlax, which are higher than the known records set by the very best Pokemon Snap players throughout the game's history. But the crazy thing is, the rest of these German devs' scores make sense and seem legit. So could these new purported records for Butterfree and Snorlax be legitimate as well? Let's take a closer look
Look at that
the
fat
ancient
fuck.
texts
Look
and
at
the
he
alleged
jiggle. Holy
claims
shit.
of Smetbo 4960 and Relaxo 40.
Relaxo saying, sounds like the name of a Pound World mon. That looks suspiciously like Snorlax.
400.
No, guys, it's not Snorlax. It is original creature.
So
Do not
Pokemon
steal.
Snap is, of course, the classic photography game where you take pictures of Pokemon, which are scored based on composition regarding their size, pose, and if any of the other same Pokemon are in the frame. Old strategy guides were pretty useful in helping Nintendo 64 gamers navigate these games well before internet use became widespread, and certainly before there was a lot of content, walkthroughs, and guides posted openly online. Browsing through these strategy guides for Pokemon Snap reveals some interesting things. Maps of the stages, useful hints as to get the best poses or specials, how to reveal hidden Pokemon, tips
Philip.
as to get the best pose.
Real review. Don't show me Snorlax's
how to reveal
butthole.
hidden Pokemon, typical things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
But deep within these guides, we can find a single page that leads to complete mystery, which, if we could crack, could lead to an improvement in the record scores for a couple of Pokemon.
The Snortdunk.
A German viewer reached out to me with this page from the official German Pokemon Snap Spielerberater, or Player's Guide, which lists the high scores for all 63 Pokemon, which can be found in game. And the most important thing to keep in mind here, is that these scores do not appear to be made up, nor do they appear to be very noobish. Rather, they're pretty decent scores. They're not far out of line with what the Pokemon Snap high score community has achieved in 25 years of playing the game. You know, if you looked at these scores and told anyone they were a top 40 player's personal score page, it would be very believable. For example, they have listed Mew at 10,000 points, which is the max score for Mew, a perfect 1,000 size with the 2,500 special and 1,500 pose, doubled for good technique to 10,000. A perfect Mew can be a little bit of a grind, so either these scores were played by guys who actually grinded relatively hard to achieve some decent scores, or they just calculated the score of a perfect Mew based on the max possible size, pose, and special, whether any of the developers actually achieved that score or not. Pikachu's high score provides additional insight on such a possibility. The German guide shows Pikachu's high score at 8,000 points, which is the record score for Pikachu. Now this requires a very niche technique in conjunction with a rare special, Flying Pikachu or Pikachu on Articuno.
Oh.
For 8,000 points, you generally need to intentionally slow down the movement of the on-rails 0-1 vehicle by alternating presses of C left and C right. Then you need to let Articuno's path through the stage clip through you and snap Pikachu while sort of inside Articuno in order to get Pikachu's max 1,000 size. This, in combination with the 1,000
Look at this
pose
silly little
and 2,000
dope.
special, give you the 8,000 points.
E.
All that
Look
being
at that
said,
dope.
it's somewhat unlikely to imagine that the developers would know to do this kind of mildly glitchy technique in order to get a max Pikachu score. But they could have easily just calculated the score by figuring out that maybe a max size 1000 Pikachu is possible. The English
Can't
version
believe
of the
these
player's
guide
guide
makers were
provides
feckin'
additional
hacking.
insight on this. In the English version, they show screenshots of Flying Pikachu in which they only get a 250 size score for a total score of 6,500. This is more in line with what someone would have gotten back in 1999 before knowledge was spread about how to slow down the vehicle, getting a closer look at Pikachu and Articuno's back. However, on a later page where they list all of the English high scores, they also do claim that they have an 8,000 Pikachu high score. Their heading over this section reads, listed below, you'll find the highest scores our crack team of Pokemon experts could earn. If you want a challenge, try to match them, but be warned, these scores are extremely hard to reach, so don't be discouraged if they seem impossible. And
Seem
perhaps
impossible.
most fascinatingly,
No, they are
not all
impossible.
of the scores are identical to the ones listed in the German Player's Guide. This definitely implies that the scores weren't set by, say, one team in Japan or the USA or Germany and then just shared across all the guides, but rather there was at least some independent research and play between each of the contributing teams. For example, Growlithe's high score listed in the German guide is 4580, while in English it's 4710. This pales in comparison to the record today of 6120, but this all goes to show that there was
look at this
probably
doggos.
some independent research between teams, and that their scores mostly seemed legit. Seemed like things that decent players who knew the game well would get at the time of the game's release. Further evidence that they didn't just assume a score with 1000 max size, then add this to the best pose and double it, can be found when looking at Gyarados and Charizard. I've spoken at length before about Charizard and how the max theoretical score of 4,500 has never been done, since the
You know, they actually got the max score for Charizard recently. Isn't that neat?
best size we can manage
There's
is
like a single frame where the Charizard will be like the right size and the right place on the screen. If you literally like pause the game and then unpause it for one frame, take the photo and then pause it again. That's the only
990
way to
for a
get the
score of
ultimate
4480.
Charizard picture.
In both the German and English guides, they have scores listed of 4380, which would imply a 940 size. Again, something very realistic for the time when these scores were published. Gyarados shows this even better. A max size of 1000 is possible, along with the best pose of 1350, doubled to 4700. A couple dozen players have
Look at the
achieved this
crap
score,
splorp.
but it's actually really quite hard and usually takes several hours of grinding, even knowing the correct setup to give yourself a shot at 1000 size. Most people get stuck at a 990 size Gyarados for a score of 4680. And in both of the English and German guides, we see the developers report high scores of, indeed, 4680. This, to me, implies that they generally did not just calculate a high theoretical score, assuming a 1000 size was possible, but actually went out and played to see what they could get. And Gyarados is the perfect example because they realized they could only get 990 and didn't even fake it to claim, yeah, we can get 10 points higher
Blah,
than
blah, 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 blah.
4700
Look at his tongue.
because they never got it because it's pretty hard. So that all brings us to Snorlax or Relaxo. Snorlax is a very large Pokemon, and thus we can't fit the entire
Very large.
Snorlax into the
He's
frame.
big.
The world record score is 4060,
Look at
which
he.
features an 830 size, 1200
Absolute
pose.
unit.
His best pose during a jolly dance he does during a specific one of the 3 Pokeflute signs, and this is all double to 4060. This is a fairly hard score, and only 8 people have ever done it, or at least have submitted it to Cyberscore, the rankings website for Pokemon Snap high scores. Top
Do you think there's some dad out there that just has a bunch of high scores in this game and we'll never know?
Snap score Matador
Some gamer
writes in his
dad.
comment, LMAO, I don't understand. Showing how 4060 feels kind of random, with most people eking out a
Ow.
4040
You
or
bonked a
4020
Pikachu.
instead. So that's why it's incredibly unusual that the German Pokemon Snap guidebook shows their Snorlax or Relaxo
They
score
want to
as being
believe, yes.
4400.
Believe in Gamer Dad.
This would imply a perfect 1000 size, with the 1200 Jolly Dance pose double to 4400. Now, as far as we know, and as far as anyone has ever seen, a 1000 size is impossible. Even with other dances and other poses, including this one where you just pesterball Snorlax and
Bonk.
scratches his belly,
Hey.
any size over the typical 700
Hey, I'm
800
sleeping
points
here.
is not really feasible. We've just never seen it. So this raises a very interesting question. What did these German developers and guide writers know that we still haven't uncovered today?
What did they
Based on
know?
the entire body of scores published in this guide, it would be surprising that they're all possible except for this one. Why go through the effort of actually playing and figuring out that you can't quite get a max score on Charizard or Gyarados, but then just faking it on Snorlax? Is there some secret knowledge that only a select few deep in some mysterious facility in Berlin knew last century? Or is the Snorlax 4400 all a crock of nonsense? One final possibility comes from taking a look at the English guide and this Japanese webpage still up on the Nintendo official website today, and noticing that their Snorlax high scores are listed at 4040. Now, this is known to be possible, and is a tough but reasonable score, as are most of these. Could the German translators simply have mistyped 4040 as 4400? And maybe when double checking, they looked at it at a glance, figured, 1000 size plus 1200 pose, double to 4400. It made sense when giving it one final look over. It's a theory, the typo theory, and maybe it's the most likely one. But things get even more strange when we look at the only one other Pokemon
Bonk.
listed with a higher score
bonked
than
to
the
me,
known
oh.
world record today, Butterfree.
Oh.
The German Spielerberater, or
Spielerberater.
Player's Guide, sorry, I just love saying that word. Well, it lists Butterfree's high score at 4960. The English Player's Guide also lists Butterfree's high score at 4960. The Japanese website on nintendo.co.jp lists Butterfree's high score at 4960. The known world record today for Butterfree, with picture proof, listed on Cyberscore, corroborated by the Pokemon Snap community after 25 years of attempting high scores in the game, by the game's champion and Pokesnap legend Fekiterago, is 4890.
Oh.
4890 is actually really good too. Second place is 4830 by Tsukige. So 4960 would be truly insane. But what might be equally insane is that based on what we know about Butterfree in Pokemon Snap, 4960 should at least be technically possible. You see, Butterfree flies around the course and often stops just above this bridge partway through the beach stage. There are other Butterfrees flying around, and so ideally
They're so
you could
pretty,
get
pretty
a main
butterflies.
subject 1000 size Butterfree when he stops in front of the bridge. You could get the nice 1000 pose, Butterfree's best possible, all double to 4000, and then you could, in theory, get a 1000 size second Butterfree for a max possible score of 5000 total. This is the theory, at least. You could also get a background third Butterfree for some more points, maybe, but these are usually only seen on lower scoring Butterfrees in the mid 4000 points.
That looks like a
So
fucking
kind of
UFO
giving up some of
photo.
that space that the first and second Butterfree could be filling up in order to see the faraway third Butterfree.
Appaloosion.
Fekiterago's 4890
that's a nice name for a
score features
Butterfree.
970 main
Appaloosion.
subject Butterfree and 950 second
Papillon
Butterfree.
plus illusion. That is
Tsukige's
pretty. That is
4830
cute.
score features a 990 main
Butterfree is a
subject
good
Butterfree,
Pokemon. I
but
like
only
it.
an 850 second Butterfree. In order to get the Nintendo claimed score of 4960, one would need, say, a 1000 main subject Butterfree and 960 second Butterfree, or 990 main and 980 second, or maybe some way to better incorporate the third Butterfree. Whatever the case may be, it's a lot closer to something known to be possible than the Snorlax claim. And given that all three strategy guides, English, German, and Japanese, corroborate the score, it really makes you ponder.
It really makes you
Butterfree's
ponder the
movement is
pester
somewhat
ball.
complicated, with a known
Get it?
setup to get
Haha.
the two Butterfrees
It's like contemplate the
well-framed,
orb, but it's the
requiring
pester
very
ball from
specific
Pokemon
movements and
Snap.
button
Ha ha
inputs from
ha ha.
power on. So Butterfree has been studied and investigated at a pretty deep level in order to get the scores that we have achieved over the years. But we're still a ways off from 4960.
Lots of people have put
Yet
lots of
all the
autism into
Nintendo
this
devs
game.
seem to corroborate the claimed score of 4960. Again, not all the Pokemon have the same scores across the three tables. Like, Porygon has a claimed 5610 on English, 5560 on German, and the record is 5800. That's the trend that you'd kind of expect to see. Years of community grinding leading to slightly higher scores where possible, or maxed scores where those are the case. So what happened with Snorlax and Butterfree? Did the Nintendo devs know something that we've been unable to uncover all these years later? Might they have been playing an earlier version of the game with slight differences that led to these unmatchable scores? I'm not sure about that one, but it is an idea.
I mean, it looks like Butterfree and Snorlax are in the same part of the same level. So if it was an earlier version of the game, if something in that level was changed, like that specifically could affect both Butterfree and Snorlax, Think about that. Think about that.
Now, one last thing to check, obviously, are the pages in the
I wonder if there was anything in the Giga Leak or the Terra Leak about Pokemon Snap scores, about this sort of
guidebooks
stuff.
specifically about the beach level, where we can find details and techniques for Snorlax and Butterfree. Surely there can't be any secret knowledge hidden in this obvious of plain sight. And if we take a look, there isn't. It's kind of odd, actually. The photos that they include for Snorlax and Butterfree show much lower scores than what are mentioned on the high score table at the end of the booklet.
German
Now,
is
this was
funny
also true with
language.
Pikachu, and we know that their Pikachu score did eventually become possible, but once again, this simply raises more questions than answers. I personally think the most likely explanations are that Snorlax 4400 is a typo exclusive to the German Player's Guide, but that some Nintendo dev somewhere went absolutely bananas on Butterfree and got a score that is completely possible, but no one has been able to match it in the years since. And that's a heck of a story if true. It's the one I want to believe, and given all we know about this game, it certainly could be true. Thanks for watching, my friends. Stay true.
Thanks for
and I'll see you in the
watching.
next stream or video.
Yay! The perfect Charizard is impossible. Nah, they got it. They got it a few weeks ago. It finally happened. Alright, but I'm gonna head out for now. Thanks for coming to my stream, peoples. I don't know how many people are still here, but thank you for coming. I will see you some other time. Bye-bye! Come on. And... Oh. There we go. It was fun hanging out. Yay! See you later. Oh, I should raid someone. Who's up freaking they freaks? Who's up freaking? Let's see. Yeah. Alright. Alright, let's see here. How do I raid? There we go. There we go. Let's raid Gloomy. Oh, this is mature content. Oh boy.